Good evening and happy Sunday. I've been thinking about what it would mean to actually get excommunicated from a church. Now, at least in Catholicism, the only way to actually get excommunicated properly is to actually be pretty involved. People who are indifferent, who only show up once or twice a year, we're not the business of excommunicating people in such circumstances. And we got to go back to think about why somebody would go to a church in the first place. And I suppose that there would be a large number of reasons for somebody to attend a church in the first place. But what I think the only significant reason to join yourself to a body of believers is that encounter with Christ in community. That would be the only reason to join any particular church. Everything else is not a terribly good reason. Now, we're assuming that this, we'll say, excommunication happens with a decent amount of respect for due process. So, if people are in leadership are behaving irresponsibly and wielding their power tyrannically, well, that's on the leadership right there. And I'm not going to say that that's never happened in the history of the church because that would be pretty foolish. But we'll say that this is something that's actually gone through due process, something that's actually like there's been a significant amount of warning, a significant amount of letting people know in what direction that they're going. Nobody is being surprised or caught off board by this process of excommunication that they are going through. And the only conclusion that I can draw from this person who has gotten excommunicated from their behavior after having gone over this process, after having been warned and asked to turn away from this, is that whatever it is that is separating them from the other members of the church is actually more important to that person than their encounter with Christ in the church. And assuming everything that I've said before this is true, then at that point, the excommunication is not only the appropriate discipline, but what that person has chosen for themselves. That they've decided that whatever it is that they are clinging to, whether it be some novel theological understanding or some behavior that they are engaging in, that is actually more important to them than their continued participation and encounter with our Lord in this church community. Uh, and so that's why excommunication, as long as the leadership is doing its job properly, is not wielding its authority tyrannically or irresponsibly, that's why that's actually um, an appropriate, fitting discipline that somebody can undergo. It looks like I got some things going over here in the comments. Clown of Babylon, friend of the show, says, in the olden days when you were excommunicated, could you still attend the church or just not take communion? So here's the problem is that while I am studying canon law, I'm studying the 1983 Code of Canon Law. And so my knowledge of what was going on in the olden days is pretty limited. I can tell you what it means now. Excommunication means that you're not eligible to hold a church office and that you're not able to receive from the spiritual goods of the church. But your Sunday Mass obligation is still in effect. So you are still required by divine and church law to attend church. You're just not in a position to receive communion when you're under the censure of excommunication, at least according to the 1983 Code of Canon Law. And I don't know what was going on in the olden days, so you'd have to maybe. Yeah, I am taking a history of canon law class right now, so maybe actually when I'm done with that, I will know what was happening in the olden days. Andrew says hello there, and so does Corey, and so does Laura. So hello, my Catholic friends. You have plenty of opportunity to address the issue and repent long before anything happens to you, assuming that the leadership is actually doing their job. I'm not going to deny the possibility that these things could be carried out very poorly. It is the formal recognition of their inherent rejection of Christ and his church. Yes, yes, that should be the idea, is that this person has rejected them, and we are just making that evident to the world. Andrew, I can see that you're trying to come in, but looks like you're having trouble connecting your device. Oh, he's not trying to come in anymore. So that's what I have on my head, according as far as excommunication go. So I think especially of Archbishop
Uh-oh.
Lefebvre in 1988. That for him, he knew that excommunication was coming if he consecrated those bishops without a mandate from the Vatican. And he went ahead and went through with it anyway. And so that means that he thought consecrating those bishops was more important than communion with the Roman Church. And I recommend communion with the Roman Church for everybody, including you, Andrew.
All right. Speaking of which, how does one get unexcommunicated? I'm asking for a friend.
Asking for a friend. So that can happen in a variety of instances. And it actually depends on how they got excommunicated in the first place. Um, so basically, um, this is more rare but easier to deal with. If you got a letter from somebody saying that you had been excommunicated, you basically have to talk to the person who wrote that letter to you and say that you're sorry for whatever you did and that you won't do it again.
Oh, okay.
And then that's, yeah, they can lift the censure. Now, unfortunately, well, I don't know about unfortunately. This is a complicated bit, is that there's something called a late sententia excommunication in the Catholic Church, an automatic excommunication. Um, those can sometimes be lifted within the context of confession by your parish priest, but it depends on what you got excommunicated for and if your parish priest has the faculties to lift that. Uh,
Huh. So it can
Laura, you
be.
should know enough Latin to know that it's not a latte sententia. It's yeah, I'll actually have to look up how it's spelled, but it's not that. Go get something to eat if that's how you're thinking. Um, so yeah, basically the idea behind an excommunication is that it's a medicinal penalty, and that once you stop doing whatever it is people uh, don't want you to do, you should be let right back in.
Sounds
Yeah,
reasonable.
yeah. Hello, Shane.
Hello. Hi, how
You're
are you guys doing?
we're doing all right. You're a little quiet right now. Let me see if I can bump your volume up here.
Okay, you said I'm a little wide.
Quiet.
Okay, let me try and tabs. Is it still wonky?
Uh yeah, I don't think you got great internet right now, but we'll try and make this happen.
Okay.
Anyway, how was your Sunday, Andrew?
It was pretty good. There's two Latin masses and one Novus Ordo. So,
Yeah, I did a Latin mass today, but it was just a low mass for some reason. I don't think they had enough musicians to do a high mass.
okay. Or
Um,
some deacons, but I guess you probably don't know.
no. It wasn't a solid mass, just a high mass.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, that's what I and for the extraordinary form, the reading was taking the lowest place rather than the highest place, and I told my people that if I had $1 for every time that I thought that things would be different if I was in charge, I would take them all to Texas Roadhouse and buy them a steak dinner. Uh,
Oh, okay.
just a little bit of self-disclosure there, but how easy it is to imagine things are simple. But as no less a luminary than the Who said, the simple things you see are all complicated. So, was there
Okay.
a good point in your any of the homilies you heard today?
Let me think about that. Uh, Man, I don't know. It depends on the homily, I guess. Sometimes I just zone out. One of them was about forgiveness, which is pretty good.
That'd be the Novus
Uh,
Ordo today.
yeah, and what were the Latin Mass ones about? Uh, wow. I mean, I remember him talking, but I don't remember what he said. So,
Well, if you've got three masses in the morning, it can all kind of blur together pretty easily.
yeah. Uh, wow. I'm surprised actually. Usually I remember, but yeah, it's been a while. It's been a long morning, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
What about you?
Well, that's kind of the funny thing about my new job, right? Because I'm pretty accustomed to, at a parish having at least one or two masses in the morning. But I'm now that I'm bishop secretary, sometimes I do the Latin mass. But if I'm not on the road with the bishop, then the Latin mass is at noon, which means I kind of have the whole morning to myself. But
Right.
I I went there an hour early and heard confessions for an hour before mass started, and we had some pretty good business. So, uh, but that's a
That's
lot
good.
slower than I'm accustomed to because, like at Holy Cross, it was you know confessions at 7, mass at 7:30, 9, and 11, and the expectation was that I'd be greeting people before and after each mass. So it's like the whole morning was taken up, and here it's just like, yeah, go ahead, sleep in. Do whatever you want.
It's interesting for a Sunday.
Yes, it is. Now, Phlebas, Texas Roadhouse is a restaurant on 13th Avenue in Fargo. Um, and they sell steak and they give you free bread with cinnamon butter. And so that's all you need to know.
We have one of those near us.
Yeah. Clown of Babylon asks, do people still fast before Mass? Noon Mass seems kind of difficult then. You'd be right. So the communion fast is no longer midnight from the night before. The communion fast in the Roman Church is an hour before communion, which is really wimpy, and I think it needs to be a little more hardcore. But I'm not in a position to do anything about that. So go ahead and eat your breakfast.
I
The
usually do
Orthodox
that.
recommend not brushing your teeth before the Eucharist. I will wait to hear that from an actual Orthodox priest.
That's an interesting recommendation.
Corey asks, I've also wondered about that. Were there rules different from daily mass? Nope, it's always just been one communion fast. So daily mass was always the same as the Sunday mass. Back in the day, it was midnight from the night before, fasting from everything, including water. And now
Oh.
it's an hour before communion.
So what's the actual reason for that?
just to spiritually prepare yourself for receiving the bread of life. So it's have you ever been to an all-you-can-eat buffet?
Yes.
Yeah, it's by the time you get to that last plate, you don't enjoy it as much as your first plate, right?
Yeah, I guess that's true.
Um, so basically, it's a matter of making sure that you're spiritually prepared. You're not allowing food and drink to dull your spiritual senses.
Hmm.
Now, Laura points out that fasting from water is rough, and I agree. Actually, I think while I would like things to be a little bit tougher, I think that water fasting was maybe a little too tough. And me being a caffeine addict, I'm gonna have to have my coffee in the morning um, before we get to that. And people used to faint. Yeah. So Corey says potentially fasting every day. Well, I think for most of church history, your daily masses happened first thing in the morning. Uh, so that's how they dealt with that. Is that 7 a.m. they were starting their low mass in the parish church, and that's how they would uh, deal with that.
I mentioned people would be going to mass really early on Sunday too.
Yeah, no. And then the second part of this communion fast thing was that lay people did not go to communion as often. In some places, lay people would have gone maybe once or twice a year, which isn't very much. And it was actually Pius X, Saint Pius X, who really started encouraging lay people to uh, go to communion more, and he lowered the age of receiving first communion in the Latin Church. So thank you, Saint Pius X. Uh,
So people weren't receiving communion. I guess that's because they wanted to eat breakfast.
yeah, and a lot of it was like, I that's too holy. I couldn't possibly. An
Yeah,
expectation
that's
that they
true.
would have gone to confession, um, which you still need to. Church's discipline is still that you shouldn't be conscious of grave sin, and so that might mean that you need to take a stop by the old sacerdotal car wash before uh, coming to communion. Which is why I'm a big fan of making sure confession's available 7 days a week if you've got the priests to do that.
We do have a church that does that, which is really nice.
Yeah, yeah. And not harassing people while they're in there. By the time you've showed up in front of me, I assume that you're already sorry for what you've done. You don't really have to put on a big song and dance to convince me that
But
you're.
what if it's the same thing they said last week?
I look, man. I sin too. All right. I'm not that creative with my sinning. It's pretty repetitive. So
Oh, okay.
it's yeah, it's not going to surprise me.
Oh, okay. I don't have to think of something new.
8:30 is a little late for me. 7 a.m. That's right. Really getting the day early. But
A
would you enjoy the
nearby.
song and dance? No, the song and dance, Corey. The whole "I'm so sorry" song and dance takes forever. Bless me, Father, for I have sinned. It has been 1 week since my last confession. That takes forever. Just hurry up and spit it out.
It has been 3 days since my last confession.
I just feel so bad about it. Yes, I know. That's why you're here. Come on, let's get it on.
Aren't you supposed to say that first part, though?
Oh, the blessed be Father, for I have said, yeah, but like just spit it out.
In
Don't
10
draw
minutes,
this out.
Father.
No, we do not keep any records of confession, or at least we shouldn't be. As far as I'm concerned, you were never there. It's all in God's hands now. Literal song and dance. Well, sure, go ahead, but make sure you sing with a piano voice because otherwise people outside might hear what you're saying, singing. Oh, yes, Laura. Yes, every parish does have a couple people who take like 15 minutes. Oh, it's painful. It's painful to listen to scrupulous people because you just want to smack them and tell them to stop being so sorry because it's really not as bad as they're making it out to be. But smacking them is the worst thing that you could do. It actually make them feel worse. So I've managed to hold it back so far. Oh, a book if you get bored. Yeah, okay, yeah, I've done that. I've done that.
Can you guys hear me better now?
I can
A
hear
little
you.
better, a little better. If we talk over you, it's because you're just
Yeah.
quiet for some reason, but you're coming through clear. So what's on your mind, Shane?
Well, I went to liturgy today, and I sorry, there's some little bit of traffic. If it gets too bad, I'll cut the mic for a bit. But so I went to liturgy, and we didn't do. There was confession scheduled. I didn't see the okay, so I need to ask. He's a priest, I think. And I didn't see him take confession from anyone, but there was supposedly confession. I didn't do that, but I went, and I met up with him yesterday because they weren't gonna have their Vespers service. It's a Orthodox church in here in Lodi, California.
Hmm.
And so I went to that, or I met him yesterday because I didn't think I was going to be able to go to service tonight, so I wanted to meet him, and I picked up this little prayer rope guy and some books, and
Nice.
little icon of it's Christ the teacher, and so I am feeling what it's like. Uh, Contentment. Peterson talks about how contentment's a great emotion. It's like contentment plus, So
Nice.
yeah, yeah. So that's what's on my mind. It's actually very surprising, because circumstantially I shouldn't be contentment plus, but that's Jesus for you.
Yeah, yeah, he seems
Yeah.
to be able to just come in and do whatever he wants. And yeah, so interesting. Interesting. Have you ever been to a an Orthodox church before, or was this the first time?
Yeah, I've been to Holy Cross Monastery in Castro Valley, St. Innocent's Cathedral in Eureka, St. Paul the Apostles in Las Vegas, and this is I think I'm putting down roots, and I'm
Got to
gonna
be
I have
somewhere.
yeah, I got my first catechism class on Thursday.
And do you remember what flavor of Orthodox this is? What communion?
So this is the other churches I've been to are OCA churches.
Mhm.
This one's in RO uh, ROCOR, Russian Orthodox Church outside of Russia.
Okay, interesting.
So yeah,
All righty. Yeah, well, if you got any insight from the Orthodox fellas, always happy to hear that. I do sometimes look over at their notes during the exams and copy a few things from them because I think they've got some keen insights. As St. John Paul II said, that the church needs to breathe with both of its lungs, east and west, and the split between the two isn't a great thing.
yeah, yeah. I lucked out because the first uh, person that I read who really kind of like I sort of felt like was my like a personal friend was or a what would you call it, like like an intimate friend was Dostoevsky. So I
Mhm.
lucked out in that, like in having that, so I sort of could go into Orthodoxy once I knew he was Orthodox. I could sort of go into an Orthodox church with a sense of faith,
Mhm.
because this intimate friend of mine, he believed in the Orthodox faith, and yeah, and so I met some great people, and we got to talk about, like, um, you know, philosophy
Mhm.
with some of the younger guys.
Now, had you grown up going to any kind of a church, or were you raised unchurched?
Yeah, I went to it's in Modesto, the Modesto Foursquare Gospel, and like the non-denominational churches around, because you know my family has I was talking to Richard Bowman on Twitter like a couple of months ago, and we talked about it was the night before I was supposed to get baptized, and so I got baptized as a Baptist, but my question to him was, is it worth it to wait to get baptized as an Orthodox? And he said yes, and he gave me his reasoning. But it became for me because I was going to do it for my mom, but she explained it to me why that wasn't a good enough reason to please people. It was more because uh, it's a relationship with Christ and God and the world and yourself. And so I got baptized as a Baptist, but then I talked to his name's Father Elijah, and so I'm gonna be doing the catechism classes, and he's up for it. He's excited for me.
Yeah, well, gosh, if you're not excited when people show up, then you're kind of a bad pastor, you know, because well, that's what you signed up for. Yeah. Well, good, good.
Thank you. Yeah.
That old meme that goes around all of the Catholic and Orthodox discords is pretty true with the two guys, and it's like, are you guys friends? And the Catholic says yes, and the Orthodox guy says no. But that's it's certainly how I feel, and I'm not afraid to, like I said, I'm not afraid to copy notes when I think they're onto something.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. What do you think of so he was sort of uh echoing um I don't know if there's waves of messages the or through the world for that matter, but through the Orthodox community, or if you know certain. Well, he was echoing Pageau's whole idea that he talked about the higher and the lower, and how the law, the Ten Commandments, kind of breaks down the laws relating to God, and then like the laws relating to relationship with other people, and then Pageau was talking about how he sums it up. Jesus sums it up in love God with all your heart, all your mind, and all your soul, and love your neighbor as yourself. And that's pretty much what he was saying today. And so I don't know, like I thought it was really what special, I guess. Yeah.
The sermon you heard today?
Yes. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Well, I'm just interested in people who seem to be. It's like, are are all the Orthodox priests? Because I mean, it is sort of like a community. It sort of feels like a small village, but it's like, are they all sharing notes, or are they all catching on to the same pattern of reality and making for lack of a better term, channeling the message that needs to go out there, given the you know the reality at hand, or are they all sharing notes? And it's like, that's interesting to me that you know there's It's like an archetypal pattern, but it's specific to the historical situation, you know? And maybe
That's, I
that's
mean,
what Jesus was doing, was he was fulfilling the pattern not only cosmically but specifically, you know?
yeah, that's I wouldn't say that there's a contradiction between guys sharing notes and guys tuning into the same spirit.
Right.
Because it's like I'm sure it's the same in the Orthodox world, but it's like we kind of listen to some of the same speakers, some of the same thinkers, some of the same bishops, and so we listen to what they have to say, and it's like, oh, dang, that's actually a really good point. I need to bring that up, and so. And that also being a work of the Holy Spirit. And then, sometimes the readings just take you right there. Because yeah, Jesus is simultaneously, speaking to the whole cosmic pattern of reality and also right to the people who were in front of them. And it's just got that air of timelessness about them.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Because I mean, he's the only what, like I was in Starbucks, and I had my little icon thing. It's still in the package. I was at Starbucks, and I was like, hey, you want to see what I got? And she was like, sure. And then I showed her the icon, and I was like, that's supposed to be what Jesus looked like when he was teaching people. And it's like, he was the only person. And then they started talking about, how I overheard another guy saying like all religions are the same and stuff. And it's like, what other God put his boots to the ground and taught people? Like none.
Yeah, yeah.
know?
He yeah, it doesn't really fit. That it's like C.S. Lewis in what was it, in Miracles, when he was talking about how, like there's a few parts of this story of Jesus that rhymes with ancient mythology, but it's way too radically different and new for it to just be another chapter in the same book. So he
Right.
made that point, and so did G.K. Chesterton in The Everlasting Man. Um,
I just found
and
that in secondhand store and I picked it up.
yeah, Everlasting Man.
Yeah, yeah. So I'll read that and I will have a probably far too thorough synopsis.
Okay, I'm having a really hard time understanding you all of a sudden. I don't know why, but I'll just let you know that when you're coming in for Chesterton, you're basically getting like Christian Nietzsche, in that he's not a very systematic writer, but he's deeply insightful. Um, yeah.
It's like once Zeus never goes down into the place that Hades resides and shines a light on it. It's like once he does that, get back to me.
Yeah. Yeah. Jesus was not a Greek god.
Right. And I don't think the Hellenism, it's like, there it doesn't have enough, it's like it doesn't have enough humility to say, hey, we'll see how Zeus does in Hades. It's like you don't see that happen.
Hmm. Yeah.
And then okay, so one more point. I feel an overwhelming desire to share this with you too. So like the sense of humility that people today take for granted didn't exist before Christ got nailed to the cross and resurrected. It's like it's like if anything's going to give humanity a little bit of humility, it's watching the best guy die willingly for his father, which nobody else can see, and then not only that, but then if you have true and right belief, he rose again. It's like humanity's gonna like kind of like bow their head a little bit, kind of be a little bit, have a little bit of humility, and people take that for granted. Like even atheists, they have, you know, good and true humility, but they either don't recognize where it comes from, or which, you know, then you can forgive them for just not knowing. But then it's like if you know and you don't say anything, it's a very I think it's a very common phenomena with people who are uh, atheistic, to know but not say know, but still act like you know, but say you believe something other than what you actually believe. So yeah, I just want to say that. Or not, you know, anyway, or not give in to you know, not let Jesus take the wheel.
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard enough as a Christian to let Jesus take the wheel, though. Isn't that right, Corey?
That's yep. Spoken truly. That's what's going on right now. My wife just picked up True Devotion to Mary by Saint Louis de Montfort.
Oh boy, she's gonna get her butt kicked.
Where
Louis de
like
Montfort did not mess around.
she just read, like, she literally just started reading it a couple hours ago. It was like the first couple of pages, and she's like, Corey, I need to read this to you. And she read me the first pages, and I was like, I don't know anything. Oh my gosh. Like, I don't think I can. I feel like I need to read a page a year or something.
You know, Louis de Montfort had some of that like really hardcore 17th century French. I don't even know what to call it. Just it's a little rigid, frankly, but like it's effective. It gets the job done. So yeah, you keep on checking in on how your Louis de Montfort journey's going, because that guy did not take prisoners. That's for sure.
It helps to get it secondhand through my wife, who's like all on board with the Devotion to Mary thing, and I'm still like, you know, I buy it now, but I'm still so. It's hard. It's hard coming from a Protestant background.
You know, if you need like a version of that that's translated into American, you can go for 33 Days to Morning Glory by Father Gately. And it's the same kind of 33-day consecration to Mary, but it's written for, you know, like 21st century Americans who are kind of half Protestant on account of our neighbors. So it kind of eases you into it, rather than you know, Louis de Montfort, who's writing there assuming that you've you know, you just grew up putting a crown on the Blessed Virgin Mary's head every May. Which, if you haven't seen that yet, your parish isn't cool enough, I guess. So,
well, that's actually. I've really been enjoying listening to Shane talk, and he mentioned putting down roots. And that actually, speaking of parishes, the question that I wanted to ask your opinion about is, because, you know, all this controversy, if you like, about liturgy and how church shopping has like migrated into the Catholic world now, because it used to be more of a Protestant thing. And I've really come to learn to value a good liturgy, and frankly, our current parish is not what I would prefer it to be. But I was talking with my buddy Sam earlier today, and he's very strongly of the opinion that you should put down roots in the community that you're in and not drive like an hour to find the Tridentine Mass that you want, you know. And I kind of agree with it, but I want to know, like, what are your thoughts on that? Because that seems to be on a lot of people's minds lately. And that's also like a big thing that draws people to the Orthodox Church over the Catholic Church, I think, in a lot of cases.
yeah, no, and that's another thing that, you know, I'm looking over at the Orthodox guy's notes, and it's like, oh, hey, you know, ancient liturgies, yeah. So I think in general, it would be good if people dedicated themselves to the Catholic parish in whose boundaries that they live, right? Like, I think that would be a great thing. And just giving that as a general rule, that'd be great.
I mean, I've gone to both Latin Mass and Novus Ordo today, in different churches, so I don't see why you can't be a community builder and a parishioner in one place and then occasionally go to a Latin Mass elsewhere.
Sure. And the second part of what I'm going to say is that if you've got a pressing good reason to do church shopping, then that's probably better than sitting and suffering someplace. So let's say that you just get angry every time you go to the liturgy at the nearest parish because everything's just so loose and lackadaisical. Whereas if you drive an extra 15, 20 minutes, you can get to some place where things are a little bit more tight. Spending every Sunday morning just angry isn't really going to be good for your spiritual development. And especially if you think that there's not much hope in moving, if you don't think there's much church in moving things in the right direction, it might actually be better to do that church shopping. It's also a feedback mechanism for the hierarchy, right? It's like, boy, I went to the Latin Mass this morning and the average age was like 15 because of how many babies there were. Okay. It's like, this is where, young people who are going to church and are really dedicated to it, this is where they're going. Maybe we need to take that as a sign of what's going on and what we might be able to deploy more broadly. So that's just what I think. Laura, I was talking about you. No, I wasn't. I was definitely talking about me in seminary. But now that I'm a priest, I get to set the tone on how Mass is celebrated. So
that's awesome. I've definitely had that experience of, on more than one occasion now, sitting in Mass and just like, I don't want to say on the verge of walking out, but like walking out, venting to my wife before we even got to the car. Why?
Yep. And and what I'll just counsel on that point is, the people, let's say you're at a church and there's a guitar and everything's just kind of loosey-goosey, laffy-taffy. The people around you might feel the same way if Father Potato Head like me came in and faced the altar around and started chanting in Latin, right? That they might feel the same sort of thing. And that just, these are very, how you worship God always is very tender for people. And just to be patient and loving with the people around you. Shane, if you're talking, you're really just not coming through right now. Yeah. I don't know what's going on with his mic. Must be something to do with California. I think he's in California. So anyway, does that help, Corey?
Yeah. No, it's helpful to hear.
There's not like a one rule,
But I appreciate too that those other alternatives even exist, and I always have to remind myself that even though I'm approaching it from a particular direction, my parents are getting interested in Catholicism, but they're like very much in the boomer camp, and like they grew up Protestant their whole lives, and they're going to like a Mass that when I visited it, I was like, oh, this reminds me exactly of like the Protestant, very boring non-denominational church I went to. But I'm glad you're here.
Yeah, that's a really interesting thing is you look at, if you're anything like me, and maybe you are, you look at, okay, the traditional Roman liturgy, the way it had been done, and then you look at the Novus Ordo Mass, and you wonder, how do we get from this to this? And if I'm going to interpret the men who put the new missal together generously, I think they were genuinely convinced that if the Roman liturgy was less old school Roman, then the Protestants would get on board with what we were doing.
I think the opposite kind of happened.
Right. And it's like, no, guy. It's like part of me is just like, no, guys, they don't want to have a pope.
Oh, we can
That's it.
be Protestant now?
Yeah. But yeah, maybe God will find a corner of the Catholic Church for your parents to be comfortable in, and maybe that won't be the worst thing in the world. Maybe we can kind of limp through things, and yeah. Laura, the link is in the chat. You are always welcome here. You are a friend of the show, Laura Freeburn.
Every time I hear "friend of the show," I think it first in the sarcastic sense that they use on Lord of Spirits.
Oh, they're always talking about Bart Ehrman, right?
And other people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Laura Freeburn is definitely better than Bart Ehrman. So there's your compliment for today, Laura. You're a lot better than Bart Ehrman.
Hooray.
Ancient people didn't believe in facts. They just wanted a good story.
What?
Right? It's just like,
Is that like
you
the
hear
Gilbert
yourself?
Gottfried of religion?
no, it's like this. Yeah, well, actually, Bart Ehrman's a little more honest than that. He's like, yeah, they just made stuff up. So, yeah. No, but also on the rest of his history podcast, they talk about so and so as being a friend of the show, and they mean it in earnest. Yeah. So that's what I mean. I mean it in earnest. Yeah. Another friend of the show just up. Hello, Arthoniel. See, the D is pronounced like a T in Tolkienese, And Sandy, another fine friend of the show. Then Laura.
Hello. Can you hear
is
me?
in a black. Yes, we can hear you. We can't see you. Is that on purpose?
Yeah, I'm a formless void this evening because people are walking around here downstairs in my house and they don't want to be caught on camera.
Your one companion is darkness. Okay.
You're a tofu abohu or whatever the word is.
Wow. Sure. So anyway, regarding the liturgy and the idea that if the Catholic Church modified her liturgy to be more like the Protestant one, Protestants would get on board. There's one thing that's extremely silly about that, which is that Protestants had been doing their liturgy for a good 500 years and they were very good at it. And Catholics are not as good at it. So I'm not sure why the liturgy per se would have, lured us over, because we would have said, oh, someone's trying to do our liturgy. They're not doing as good a job as we do, but it's kind of cute. But, I'm not going to go join their church so that I can have a slightly worse liturgy than the one I got at my own church.
Yeah. Look, I'm not saying it was a good idea. I'm just
I know.
saying they weren't intentionally trying to tank the Catholic liturgy. They were trying to do something they thought was good, and they just got a little bit over their skis.
Oh, yeah, I know. I think they were trying to do something they thought was good. Why are there? I guess there are people saying they were purposely trying to ruin it, huh?
The whole Annabelle Bugnini was a Freemason bit. You've never heard that one before?
I have actually, because somebody from the FSSP who used to come to my university told us a story about was it Bugnini who allegedly left a briefcase behind in a meeting or something, and then they got inside and found that it was full of documents about Freemasonry and stuff, and then he ended up being made titular bishop of Tehran or something, or is that somebody else I'm thinking of?
He ended his final ecclesiastical post was the nuncio to Tehran.
Oh, nuncio, okay.
Yeah, so That's considered a bit of a demotion than the head of the congregation for divine worship and sacraments.
Yeah.
So he did end up falling out of favor. As far as the briefcase goes, I don't know anything about that.
Okay, that's what I heard from an FSSP guy who shall remain nameless.
I've never heard that before.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Is the Freemason thing real, or is that just like a more of a conspiracy theory, partly to be believed sort of thing?
so it's
Oh, yeah, Freemasons
unacceptable
do
for a
exist.
Catholic to be a Freemason. And a lot of that comes from European Freemasonry, which was very explicitly opposed to the Catholic Church. And so the Pope was like, you're not going to have anything to do with that. You get less explicit anti-Catholicism in American Freemasonry because they're kind of running the show here. But I don't think you should be a Freemason anyway, because you should join the Knights of Columbus instead. If you want that fraternal, there's a baby.
A baby.
We're gonna.
I have to do my
how do
father
I-
job.
No, show us the baby, Corey.
I'm yeah, baby time.
Are you happy? Happy baby.
How old is this baby?
2 weeks as of tomorrow.
Aw.
She has hiccups.
Cutest
is
little
Lucy.
hiccups in the world.
Yep. She's like, what is that thing over there?
This glowing light your father will protect you from. Otherwise,
Yeah.
you'll become a demon that eats all of your attention.
Mm-hmm.
Accurate.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right, we're gonna go back to our stand. Oh, nope. There we go. And then put myself back in my place. Yeah, here we go. Yeah. So anyway, Annabelle Bernini, maybe he was the devil, but he might have just been kind of dumb. I don't know.
I gotta say, I'm not a huge fan of. I've met a lot of people in the traditional sphere who go on about how the Freemasons are like the cause of everything bad in the Catholic Church for the past 500 years.
Oh, you're talking like Taylor Marshall stuff?
Maybe, I don't know.
I don't think any one group could be that efficient. I think the only way that bad things can come into the Catholic Church at this scale is if Catholics are actually human beings who sin.
Sounds
It's
about
the
right.
only possible way to get there.
Can't be.
So,
I
so
do
yeah. So that's what I think. Yeah.
What were you gonna say, Laura? I stepped on you.
What was I gonna say? I don't remember. Don't let me slow down your conversation.
I kind of ran out of things to say, so somebody should come up with something interesting.
Yeah, actually, I have a question for you. I sort of have a question about the experience of being being assigned to a new parish, or
Mhm.
I guess being newly assigned to a parish. Not that the parish is new, right? But
Right.
you arrive at a parish and maybe they really, really loved their previous pastor, and you're replacing him, and all the dynamics that are associated with that. Not you specifically, Father Eric, but just priests in general. Do you have any thoughts on that?
So there's a little piece of pastor's wisdom that gets passed down in the seminary, is that you shouldn't change anything in the first year that you're there.
Hmm.
And I actually think that makes an awful lot of sense, because you basically just need intel.
Oh.
Like you don't know who's there, you don't know the history of the place, you don't know, it's Buckaroo Banzai across the eighth dimension, right? Don't pull on that. You don't know what it's connected to.
Mm-hmm.
There's a 80s
Yep.
movie reference there that I know Mark will appreciate. Don't pull on that. You don't know what it's connected to. So,
Blessed.
I've never actually gone and taken over a parish. I've only ever been assistant pastor, so I can't tell you what I would do when I'm taking over a parish, because I've never actually done that. But my instinct is that all of the different priests that I heard that advice about waiting a year before you change anything, I think that stands to reason. Now, obviously, if I go there and they've got grape juice and hosts made out of garbanzo beans,
Wow.
I'm going to go ahead and make sure that I'm celebrating the Mass validly. I'm not going to go out there and start shooting blanks on account of this principle. So we will get bread made from wheat and true grape wine and celebrate the liturgy with that. So obviously, that's not an absolute rule. I think probably with the staff, things could be changed a little more readily. It's like, oh, this is how we're going to conduct a staff meeting. This is how I want to schedule things. The 5 or 6 people on the parish staff could be quite a bit more flexible. So anyway, I heard you had a new pastor, and maybe he's following that rule, and maybe he's not.
Yeah, no, he basically is. Yeah, he hasn't really changed anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's there's very few things that can be helped by rushing. Make haste slowly, as Abraham Lincoln would say. So,
Right.
so yeah. You just you don't know who bought the coffee maker. Yeah, so don't get rid of it until you know who bought it. It might be something you're not looking at yet.
Have you ever had an experience of, I guess you wouldn't have had this experience yourself, but have you ever heard stories from priests who went into a parish where people were kind of in mourning for the pastor that they lost because they loved him so much? I can imagine that would be challenging.
Yeah. Yeah, I can think of a place, not in my diocese, where they had a picture of beloved former pastor in the sanctuary, which really is not the appropriate place to put anything but a canonized saint and images of Jesus. I think we could all be in agreement on that. I'm even a little not sure you should even have an American flag up there, although some places will do that off in the corner. Yeah. So, and then the guy who followed him, he was telling me the story about how they had this hallway in the parish hall that was really run down, and he was like at a parish council meeting, and he's like, we really need to do something about that hallway. Yeah. And we should dedicate it to Father so-and-so. Yeah. That's a great idea. And we could put that picture of him up there. Yeah. And so they rebuilt the hallway, and they moved that portrait of Father, beloved former pastor, to the hallway. And so I've locked away that story as a just in case. Here's how you handle that kind of a story there. Yeah, but I've never actually encountered that sort of thing specifically myself. I be a mourning over Father, beloved former pastor. So I don't know how I'd handle that, except just try and preach really well every Sunday.
Yeah, and I think it's got to be on the people in the parish to not get too caught up in their feelings and recognize that if they miss the old guy, it's not the new guy's fault, right? So still be nice to him.
Yeah. Buddy of mine from another diocese talked about his diocese is much, much, much smaller than the Diocese of Fargo. They talked about the problem of priest groupies who would follow priests around from parish to parish. And it's like, oh, man. See, that's why you live in North Dakota, right? Like Father Seitz gets a little too popular in Fargo. You just pick him up and you move him out to Botno. See if anybody's going to drive 5 hours to go hear him preach, huh? Don't think they will.
Let's move to the YouTube church.
Oh, the YouTube church. Yeah.
Oh, I also have a question for you, Father Eric. What was your preaching like when you were first ordained? Like in your first year or two of preaching after you became a priest, was there anything kind of distinctive about it that changed over time?
Yeah. So when I was first ordained a deacon, I would like type out my entire homily. But I got over that pretty quickly. I used to make an outline every week of my homily. And I would also do that for daily masses. And then the outline started dropping away for daily masses, but I'd still do it on Sundays. And then the outline started dropping away on Sundays, and I just was preaching without notes. And basically, it's like I've got an opening hook and 3 or 4 points that I want to make, and then we're out of there. And I figure if I can't remember that, then I need help, because that's really not that much to remember. So that's what I've noticed has changed over the priesthood, is that I still do spend a fair bit of time in preparation for these homilies, especially in prayer, but it's not something that I feel the need to write out most of the time. I just kind of go up there and tell people what I'm thinking. But it was funny, in Wahpeton at my first assignment, people would keep on telling me how much they had seen me grow. I'm like, what do you mean by that? But I wonder if it wasn't the notes going away, because one of the things about not having the notes is I just tend to look out more because I don't have anything else to look at. So I'm just kind of looking at people.
Sure.
And that, if you like that, then that would be something that would be pretty easy to notice with me changing over time versus, constantly having to look down and look up.
Were your sermons a bit more academic at first because you'd come out of an academic environment, or not so much?
I don't think so. I don't think so. Thomas Aquinas is always working in the background, but he doesn't come up very much, which is, I'm sure, exactly how he would want it,
Mm-hmm.
He'd just be in the back, putting things into the appropriate order. But yeah. So I don't feel like I've ever been that academic when I'm preaching, but I guess you'd have to ask people who are listening to me because, the academic stuff can flow out of me pretty easily. So.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I really like the one that I heard in DC.
Oh, thank you. At 7 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
at St. Anthony of Padua on 12th Street.
Yeah, that was a nice church.
Nice
I really
church.
enjoyed it. It was
Yeah.
refreshing. The only reason we don't go to a 7 a.m. mass here is because all the families and the choir are at the 10:15 one at our parish, which super, super happy that we even have a choir. So worth it to fast a little bit longer.
We only have to fast for an hour. That would be the same 7 a.m. or 10:15. That's the law of the church now.
Yep.
Since 1964.
Honestly, like I try to do like more of an actual fast, but like you said, the coffee is the hard one for me. Like I'll be sipping my coffee and checking the clock like, oh, I'm already within an hour of mass starting, but they probably wouldn't have started the Eucharist yet. I should stop drinking coffee.
Yeah. No,
Lord have mercy.
Lord have mercy. Lord have mercy, especially on the caffeine addicts. Yep. Yeah.
All right, so here's a topic of conversation. People who are doing like the homesteading thing or like the looking out to build a new community thing. It's a popular topic of conversation nowadays. Laura is very familiar with this.
I am actually.
Let's see. so I've been learning a lot about how there's a lot of Orthodox and I think even some Catholic people writing about how liturgy is like a good way to understand just the way that communities operate, like a good frame to see it through. And you even look at a lot of the giant successful cities, they're all built around churches in one form or another. And like I was looking at oh really? Like even in California, like all the big cities, they started as missions. It's an interesting thing. So if one were to like get a new community started somewhere in a rural area, what would be I don't know, how does a parish start, or how would one I don't know, is there a way to like integrate a chapel or get a priest assigned somewhere to a new community that's springing up or something?
Yeah, what I would say is move to Nebraska. Specifically the Diocese of Lincoln, Nebraska, which is one of the few places in the United States which has enough priests.
This reminds me of Eric Brendy. Have you heard of him, Corey?
I haven't.
Anyone remember the magazine Cielo et Terra? It was kind of a crunchy Catholic magazine that had a lot of stuff about farming and small communities. And Eric Brendy wrote some things for them, and he was a guy who had spent a lot of time with the Amish, and he wanted to found a rural Catholic community that like lived together and farmed with, similar values and stuff. And he used to put advertisements in Cielo et Terra asking for a priest to come out and be a priest to their community that they were trying to set up. And it seemed like he was having a hard time of it. I can't remember if they ever found someone to specifically come to their community and be their priest. And I think the community basically evaporated after a couple years. So in the end, it was a moot point. And he ended up moving to St. Louis and just settling into a nice neighborhood and being friends with his neighbors.
Probably what most people should do, right?
There's a lot of room for that. So I think the reason that you need to have a church in the middle is because all of the people that you're trying to gather need to have a shared, we'll say, religious or highest value. So a Christian faith. And so that's what actually is able to make a civilization great, is when they can unite and cooperate towards a highest common purpose. And I think that's why so many Catholics were actually pretty skeptical of the American project in the 18th and 19th centuries, because they had this sense that the Constitution and the flag and these Enlightenment ideals were kind of a crypto church that was gathering people around, giving them highest values that were not Christian, that were not the church. So, I'm not sure what to do about that besides be a good priest. But it's an interesting and somewhat subversive thought. But anyway, if you're thinking seriously about founding a little Catholic commune, Diocese of Lincoln, Nebraska is going to be the place where you need to go, because you might get a priest there.
Fair enough. We like to avoid the commune word, but I guess that's kind of what it ends up.
Well, make sure that you actually avoid the commune then.
No, but it's an interesting thing. Like, I've been learning a lot about. So we really like beauty, and this idea of like the beautiful liturgy is a thing that attracts people and then actually draws your attention to the right thing, and the beauty first way, right? And one of our life goals, Margaret and I, since we first got married, has been to build a house somewhere. And that's expanded into this thing like, well, instead of just being like a selfish thing that we want to do for ourselves and for our family, like, why would we not try to make this a real thing that's like serving the kingdom. We've been learning about L'Abri, and we've seen retreat houses and visited retreat houses where you can invite people to spend time and like heal and talk about cool things and et cetera, et cetera. So that's something we're noodling about. But it also matches up very nicely with all this, you know, I don't know about homesteading, but kind of a self-sustaining sort of community is possibly I don't know, it's a popular thing nowadays, at least.
Yeah, that's what the folks at Urban Abbey and Thunder Bay want to do. Is they want to start like a self-sustaining eco community, which is basically, I think, you know, farming a little more the old-fashioned way, and a little less machinery, a little less fertilizer, a little more cultivating, I think.
It's in here.
So if they can manage it, I think that'd be pretty cool. But we'll
Yeah.
see.
One of the
We'll see.
interesting questions about places like this is always, what are the parameters regarding who belongs there? How broad can you or should you make them? And how explicit?
Right, because I remember hearing some of your story on PVK's channel, and you made the point, Laura, that you felt like some of the intentional Catholic communities that you were living in were kind of lacking the whole body of Christ.
Yeah, I felt
It's
that way
maybe
after
like
a
they
while.
only got the top third of the pyramid.
You get a narrow slice of people because you just get these really similar people who are attracted to this one project. And then they can start to drive each other crazy because they're just all too similar, right? It's not that anyone's like a bad person, but like it can be a dynamic. Yeah, like I was actually looking at a school. I was trying to think of, I was just having some thoughts about like other stuff I could be doing, although I'm pretty happy with what I'm doing right now. But I looked at a school in my area that's known for being very, very traditionally Catholic or like very serious. And I was just kind of looking at their website, and I just thought I couldn't go there to work because everybody at this place is basically me, you know, like it's just too much similarity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I wouldn't want to be in a church filled with me. That's for sure. It'd just be all this nitpicking and all of this. You didn't do this right, and you forgot that.
Right. And then like how are you checking each other's sanity, right? Are you
Yeah.
different enough to be able to give each other sanity checks?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, those are
you
good
know, I
questions.
was thinking when I heard that story that there's a function that an abbot in a monastery is able to do, and he can only do it because he's the abbot, is that, you know, sometimes you just have to draw an arbitrary line and say, this is how we're going to do things.
Mm-hmm.
So I was thinking especially about like some of the modesty purity spirals that you were talking about there. And it's like, if the pastor just got up and said, the skirt has to go 2 inches below the knee,
Mm-hmm.
like, would that be the worst thing in the world? Or would that just be something we can all agree on now and not worry about it anymore?
Right.
But the pastor
Exactly.
doesn't want to do that, because if you've got any sense, you don't want to tell the women how to dress.
Yeah, sure.
It's like, you ladies just figure that out amongst yourselves. We're gonna.
But then the way that women work on this is they tell each other, well, I dress a certain way because I have certain standards. And they kind of leave it at that. And then like the other women are wondering, like, is she telling me that she looks down on me because I don't dress according to her standards, right? Or is she just being nice and telling me how she dresses and why, and she's not even thinking about me? It turns into like a whole thing.
Yeah, it sounds like you're overthinking things. That's
Yeah.
just what I think. So
That's very much how women are. They operate
Yeah.
on a much higher social plane than us lowly men.
Well, there's a suspicion of hidden messages, right?
Yeah.
Women always wonder if other women are sending them hidden messages.
What's the word? It's high context culture. I don't know
Oh
what it's
yeah, uh-huh.
Yeah. That's why I prefer to just be regular aggressive instead of passive aggressive.
Right.
so much easier. Everybody knows where you stand. You can get a fist fight, and then you can have beer afterwards. It's great.
Yeah.
And then
yeah,
you're done.
Yeah.
And then you're
we're
done.
No, a friend of mine, he's a priest. One of his pastors was another very straightforward German, much like myself, and he told me that being friends with you for this past decade has prepared me to be in this role underneath him, because I now know whatever he says, that's what he means. You know,
Mm-hmm.
just whatever he says, that's what he means. If he says I'm doing a good job, it means I'm doing a good job. If he says I need to stop doing this, he just means stop doing that. There's no subtext there. And I'm like, thanks. I'll take that as a compliment, I
I
guess.
think
Nice.
you should.
Yeah. So yeah. Anyway,
Actually, I'd be interested from hearing from Joseph or Jacob whether Jewish women are a little better at this, at just being direct with each other. But they're not here, so I
That
guess
would
we can't hear
be
from them.
interesting to hear.
Because
I
yeah,
don't know.
in my
I think I
experience, they
inherited
tend to
too
be
much
pretty
of my
good at being direct.
dad's straightforward German to be good at the whole woman thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'll bet a lot of the women in this. I know we're not allowed to say this little corner of the internet on this stream.
the
I
Peterson
don't know what
sphere.
else to call it.
You
The
have a word.
Petersphere?
The Peterson sphere.
Peterson sphere or Peter sphere?
The
I don't
Peterson
know.
sphere.
Okay.
No, I like
That's
Peter
acceptable.
Spear.
Yeah, the Peter sphere.
It seems like a lot of the women.
Peterverse.
Yeah, there you go. The women who like the thinky talky stuff tend to be much more like that, which is, it's funny. My wife is like that. Like, she likes this stuff, and she is easier for me to have these conversations with. But she still has more of the high context awareness, but maybe
Mhm.
less than, she doesn't typically get along with women in those kinds of social settings super well.
Yeah, I'm kind of like that too. Yeah.
I know men who are very indirect in their way they talk.
Well, next time they
that can
do it,
also
just
happen.
punch him in the face. Tell him to speak like a man.
All right.
Spoken like
Will
a German.
Wow. Okay.
Enough of
advice
this
from a
womanish
priest there.
nonsense, you milk drinker.
I hope I don't get
Don't ever
expelled.
visit. Yeah, don't ever visit the Far East.
Okay.
Do you mean like the Far East, like the Asian cultures?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Asian cultures and a
I
lot
think
of.
he means the Jersey Shore.
okay.
Yeah.
Because Andrew lives in Jersey, he's used to direct people,
Ah,
Yeah.
especially
I'm-
in traffic.
I'm just wondering, like, the high context cultures is where that term comes from. Is where the entire, like, you have to know how to read faces, because a person in a high context culture might say the same words to you, but if their tone is just a little bit different, or if they make a slightly different, like, body language thing, that it means, like, completely the opposite of what they said. Like, I guess Asian culture tends to be more like that generally.
Good.
That
I'll
Asia
just
is a
stay
very
in North
large place.
Dakota. We do have some funny, very Midwestern verbal constructions, though. Like, what do you think? Yeah, no, yeah means.
It means, yeah, unfortunately, you are correct.
Yeah, right. No, yeah, no. That means
Oh yeah, no, yeah.
no. I see what you're saying, but no.
But no.
But if you were to just read that out, it'd be like, what?
The tone of voice actually contributes a lot to those too.
Yeah, it sure does, doesn't it?
No.
Different
Yeah.
dialects we have of
No,
English.
yeah, no.
Yeah. But I mean, even being from the degenerate East Coast, Andrew, you understood what I meant, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Wait,
yeah,
what'd you say?
yeah, no, yeah, yeah, I follow you there, bud.
Hang on. Is
Just
that indirect subtext?
Like, I think
Is
of that as, like,
degenerate supposed to mean something?
Oh, the East Coast? Yeah, I don't know. That's where all the Catholic churches are closing down, and then we buy your stained glass windows and put them up in churches here in North Dakota. So
Well, they don't look that great, most of them, anyways. So
some of them look really great, though, especially in churches in North Dakota.
Uh, wait, what?
No, seriously.
The stained glass, you mean?
The stained glass. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, I meant the whole church.
Oh,
I mean, if you want to take a church from New Jersey and put it inside of a church in over there, I guess you could do that.
over there. I don't even know. Some square state west of the Mississippi.
It's one of the, what is that, Oklahoma, Missouri, Wyoming? I don't remember.
They're all squares. Who cares?
Oh, no. So at my
Like
home
Texas.
parish, in our adoration chapel, the pastor who built the place literally found these lovely stained glass windows of the 5 joyful mysteries on eBay
Oh man.
for like 10 grand,
Mm.
which was a
Wow.
steal because they were top quality stained glass. So that's like 2 grand a piece. You can't get that. Can't get that new.
Yeah. One of my priests found a signed image of Fulton Sheen in a pawn shop or something. And the guy was like, "Yeah, I'll give it to you for $10. I don't know, it looks like some kind of priest or something." He was like, "Oh, okay, I'll take that."
Yeah, you would take that. I would take that too. $10.
I would take that.
It's a second class
That's
relic, probably.
Yeah.
Someday.
Someday soon. I read
Oh,
this
yeah.
article on Fulton Sheen recently. That dude was a beast, man.
Yeah, he was.
Like,
Do
he
you
would-
think they would come here to do that?
Probably the beatification, but not the canonization. So that's
That
been
would be
the
cool.
that's been the
All right, it's
pattern.
got to
with-
happen in the next 4 years.
Yeah, that's been the pattern with beatifications recently. Is that the beatification can happen in the saint's home country, but the canonization always happens in Rome.
Makes sense.
Mhm.
As much as anything.
So unfortunately, what was it? The last major beatification I think we had was a Blessed Solanus Casey.
Casey. I was at that one.
You were at that one?
I was at that one.
Super jealous.
It was at Ford Field.
Yeah, it was at Ford Field.
And what is it? My parents picked up me and my college roommate. And then we dropped off my college roommate at her cousin's wedding, which was also in Detroit, like the next day, I think. Or maybe it was the other way around. We picked her up at her cousin's wedding. I don't know. It was a great time. It was very exciting. It was worth driving up from Hillsdale.
I'm jealous and envious.
Well, if Fulton Sheen gets beatified in Peoria, you'll have to come down
I will. I mean,
and go
honestly,
with us.
they're not going to have room for all the priests who want to go to that because let me
Yeah.
tell you what book goes around the seminary. The Priest is Not His Own by Venerable Fulton Sheen. It's like every priest in the country's got a copy of that on his bookshelf or in his Kindle. It's
What did I do to this?
I don't know, Emma. You haven't shown us it yet.
Well, that's because it's a mess. I'm trying to do some visible mending where you embroider over a place you ripped a hole in your shirt because patching it would be just as obvious anyway. But I'm making a mess of it.
Maybe Solanus Casey will intercede for you so you can fix it.
Well, it's okay, Emma. I'm transcribing a birth certificate, and I just realized about 2 minutes ago that I was transcribing the wrong birth certificate.
Oh no.
Solanus Casey, pray for us.
I was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines into it. So it's not that bad, but still.
Are you trying to do it like fancy or?
So I'm reading a German birth certificate from 1835. So the handwriting is fancy.
That would
And
be fancy.
it takes a little time to decode it, so I'm just
Yeah.
reading it and writing it out by hand first, like just transcribing the German, but in my normal handwriting, so it's easier for me to read.
Yeah.
And then I'll
Is
translate
this
it.
for like research?
Someone's paying me to translate it, but yeah, that person's doing genealogical research.
I was just
cool.
gonna say, I was literally Googling like yesterday, or no, 2 days ago, genealogical research investigator people.
Oh.
So I've been interested in family tree stuff recently.
Mm-hmm.
But I would need somebody who knows about Ukrainian and how to track Ukrainian village records.
Well, I think this person told me he found these records through Mormon sources.
It's always the Mormons.
Mm-hmm. They have a lot of
they're probably right.
relevant archives and stuff, yeah, in various countries.
Kind of like the Germans.
Mm-hmm.
Man, Jacob's not even here to tell us why that's terrifying.
How do you know he's not listening?
Well, he still can't tell us if he's listening.
Can he not?
Maybe he'll jump on.
Wait, did something happen that I don't know about that Jacob isn't allowed to talk to us now?
No. Jacob's got this thing with Mormons.
Yeah.
Basically, they're like doing some kind of rituals that are super dangerous, and he's terrified
Some
of
kind
it.
of Kabbalah stuff.
Oh, is this something you found out about recently? Because I know he's been learning about Mormons for a long time.
I don't know. It's something I heard him talk about recently, but I've only been here a year, so.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. Well, it looks like he's not here. Corey, your
we have not summoned.
Your baby's
Show us the
gone.
baby again, Corey. Or is she asleep?
She
In which case
is,
you don't want to move her.
She is with mommy. Yeah, and it's a good thing that I turned off the camera and the video and that microphone, because I almost stepped on a cockroach as I went into the bathroom, and you probably been able to hear the shriek as if my microphone had been on.
Oh my, yeah. You know, when we lived in South Carolina, in order to deal with the cockroaches, we got a cat.
Yeah.
And the cat, I don't know how many of the cockroaches it actually got, but it chased him around pretty consistently. And that kept him out of sight.
That makes sense.
Looks like he was working on it.
I have lots of reasons. We've spent a good portion of my career living in the South, and we have a good number of reasons why we don't want to continue living in the South. The bugs is one of them.
Cockroaches, yeah.
Yeah, nasty.
And I like cold weather. It's hot here.
Come on up to Wisconsin, Corey.
I'm planning on it. That's what I was talking to Sam about earlier today too. Like, we're going to come and visit, but not during the best time of the year. We have to visit during the worst time of the year to make sure we can handle it.
Wisconsin doesn't get that cold.
What do you mean by worst? The summer or the winter?
March.
I guess I meant the winter. Is the summer possibly worse than the winter?
It depends on whether you like heat or cold.
Well, how hot does it get?
It can get in the high 90s occasionally.
You want to know what the weather's been here?
It was like 110, right?
Yeah, for like 2 months straight.
Yeah.
Between 100 and 110. And humid. It's gross.
See,
I'm a California native, so I'm spoiled. I'm a weakling.
If you live towards the north, it's also useful because February coincides with the worst, or Lent coincides with the worst weather every year.
Mark says I cannot handle that area.
Oh man, he's throwing the smackdown right there. He's just telling me what you can and cannot do.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm
gonna just take that as a challenge and move to Alaska. That'd actually be my first choice, but my wife is like, we have a family, and I was like, okay, fine.
I listen, man. I lived in Norway for 2 years. The seasonal extremes are just not natural up there. It's like you get way too much sunlight in June and not nearly enough in December, and it just drives you bonkers. Like it's bad. It's bad enough in North Dakota, really. Like I just noticed today that it's like, oh, the sun is not as strong as it's supposed to be, and I know what that means 3 months from now. That means winter's coming. Although apparently the El Nino is going to keep things a little more mild in North Dakota. Keep all of that horrid Canadian air up in Canada.
I guess we'll find out. Everyone's making all sorts of predictions about this year. But I figure Wisconsin's a good... I like cold weather. I prefer cold weather. Mark is commenting about Virginia. I spent 2 years living in Virginia too, and I really liked it. But there wasn't enough snow. I want there to be a little bit more cold weather. I do like the part of South Carolina I've seen, but I think that's too far south for me.
You want to make sure you're not living in a swamp if you're in South Carolina.
And we were in North Carolina for a year, and we were in an apartment building with this apartment building, parking lot, and a little pond. And there was an alligator that lived in the pond, like right next to the parking lot. What was its name? They had a name for it, and I can't remember. It might have been Fred or something like that.
Just completely.
But yeah, and their spiders are like this big, so even North Carolina is probably too far south for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, I hear Wisconsin's nice. There's a lot of cool people there.
It's very nice.
Are you in Wisconsin, Laura?
Me? Yes, I am.
Oh,
Hmm.
I thought you were. Are you like near Chicago? People keep
Yeah.
mentioning you in connection with Chicago.
Yes. Yeah. So I'm like an hour away from the TLC meetup for the Chicago area, which is in Des Plaines, Illinois.
Gotcha.
It'd probably take me an hour and a half to drive into Chicago, though.
That was the actual name of it. You can't blame her for that.
Wait, what?
No, it's a Jordan Peterson meetup in Chicago.
Oh.
He's flashing slides at you.
Laying down the law.
That's right. This is a Peterson Sphere live stream.
Wow.
Wait, so why are we protesting against the TLC moniker?
Mark will leave the answer in the comment. Basically, I don't think there's a there. And so I don't think you should speak of it as if it was actually a place that people were. And 100% of everything that's happening here so far is entirely based on personalities. And so if you actually put a personality at the center of it, it's like, okay. Because the only thing that draws Nate Heil and Mark and Jacob and me and Paul Vanderklay and John Vervaeke together is this vague association with Jordan Peterson. Because they're all crazy different. We wouldn't have anything to do with each other if it wasn't for Jordan Peterson. All righty, here's Mark's brilliance. There's a great comment about this, actually. Vertical causality allows you to escape the corner, so the sphere is more significant. I'm sure he'll flesh that out a little bit later, but I'm not quite sure what he's talking about. I mean, I know the parts. I don't know how it comes together to the whole. So anyway, if you just place a personality at the center, then it's acceptable. Because when the personality goes away, all of this is just going to crumble.
Well, that sounds an awful lot like the Commune that we were talking about earlier, right? Where you just end up with a bunch of people with the same type of personality or the same interests, and it doesn't.
No, not a type of personality. Not a type of personality. A person at the center.
No, yeah, but it's the same sort of deal, right? Like that sort of person who would enjoy getting drawn together by Jordan Peterson is probably more similar than a random snippet of,
Sure. So I would say that probably.
We do have something in common, but we're not really that similar. That's why this is fun.
Yeah. It's there would be a selection for openness to experience, certainly, because like if you're not curious about things, then this is just going to be awful. But I don't know what besides that would actually, besides hopefully people being after goodness, I hope, or at least wanting that, or at least thinking that that would be a good thing. Yeah, but anyway, I think having a person at the center is the only thing that works ever. And the value of an institution is that it can embody the spirit of a person across time, which is
Here we
the
go.
church,
That's right. So this
which
is the whole.
embodies the spirit of Jesus across time.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. So this is like the stuff that I've been learning a lot about lately. And mythos, the reason that mythos is a thing in cultures, the way that it holds together, and the way that Richard Rowland will talk about, is because it can be embodied. And stories are only a part way to it. They're always stories about people who are containers for like not just an idea, but a whole entire set of ideas and ways of living and like values and all of this. Not really a person is the only way that you can contain all of that, because a person is infinitely complex and is able to embody it.
I really need to figure out how to revamp my Greek myth class.
Meanwhile, my hamster's doing some amazing gymnastics. I'm sorry I can't show it to you.
Oh, I wish you could.
So anyway, Jesus was able to hold together the 12 apostles, which went from everything from the tax collector to the zealot, right?
Yes.
So you've got the guy who was cozying up with the Roman authorities to the guy who would have been like, yeah, let's murder the Roman authorities, you know? And Jesus was able to hold those extremes together in his person. And so the Peterson sphere, yes, we could talk about that because, frankly, it's his person and that's holding all of this stuff together. But this little corner, it's like, yeah, I'm not buying it. So anyway.
I like Peterson universe.
The Peterson universe. The Peterson multiverse.
It sounds like it's part of the Avengers or whatever.
The Peterson cinematic universe.
Yeah, some people would have issues with making it sound like the Avengers.
I was actually thinking about the animated Spider-Man, but Avengers is also acceptable.
With all the millions of different Spider-Men?
Yeah, the Into the Spider-Verse.
With
the old one and the black one and the girl one and the pig one.
And the anime one and the noir one. Yeah.
Oh yeah, the noir one.
Voiced by Nicolas Cage.
What?
Oh my goodness.
Who was astounded by a Rubik's Cube because turns out he can't see color because it comes from a black and white world.
It was a fun little movie.
It was a fun movie.
My
I
kids
have
liked
not
it.
seen this.
What if old Jordan Peterson and pink Jordan Peterson come from another dimension to save the world?
And communist dissident Jordan Peterson.
Yeah. It's got like an eye patch.
Now listen, Bucko, I actually was in the gulags.
So, you know,
Oh,
we
man.
recently rewatched Battlestar Galactica, and we kept laughing at how much Saul Tigh reminded us of Jordan Peterson.
Was this the old one or the new one?
The one from like 2000, I don't know, when was it? 7? Something like that.
Okay, the new one.
Yeah.
Not the 1970s one with reused animations.
Correct. Yeah, the Ty's played by a Canadian actor, so that helps.
Do all Canadians sound like Kermit the Frog?
In some ways, a little bit, maybe.
Well, then I guess you Northerners are getting close to that, aren't you?
Yeah. Aren't you, though? Emma, what part of the country are you in?
I'm in Central Illinois.
Oh.
That's
Which
not
is
too
why
far.
people
Not
keep
too
thinking
far.
that like Chicago will be a super nice, easy meetup for me, and it's like 2.5 hours away.
Yeah. Are you more east or west?
I'm pretty sure I'm more center.
Oh, okay. So you're just right smack in the middle of Illinois.
I'm
huh?
straight down 57. I'm at the university.
Like Champaign-Urbana?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Are you guys going to plan a little
That's where I'm at.
Peterson Sphere Catholic women's meetup?
Oh man, yeah, that'd be kind of far.
Yeah.
Sometimes, yeah, I do go to the
It's kinda
Chicago
rough.
area, but that's still a ways away.
Yeah.
I used to have relatives out near Princeton, which is in Illinois, but near Iowa.
They have a
Mm.
Princeton there?
I used to be over there. Yep, there's a Princeton, Illinois.
And I think I got to get going, guys. It's nice to talk to
All
y'all.
right. Good to see you.
See, I can say
Bye.
y'all now because I'm still living in the South right now.
I say y'all all the time, and nobody can stop me.
Well, Corey, let me know if you're coming to Wisconsin.
I will. Yeah, we're
Awesome.
just trying to pick a date right now.
Cool.
We have a bunch of people that want to visit there and see if we can find a place to live too.
Awesome.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Peace, Corey.
Bye.
All right.
What
Yeah, I
about
hope
Arkansas,
to make it to
Father Eric?
Arkansas.
Oh, there's Ted's planning a meetup in
Oh, that's
Arkansas.
right. Yeah. You know, my
I'll,
father was from Arkansas.
I'll go find a link to it and drop that into the chat. But it will be featuring yours truly as a speaker.
Wow.
I need to
I-
figure.
Will
if
it be like
I'm
in the winter?
It'll be
November.
Nice
no,
winter weather in Arkansas.
not what I wanted.
It's like November 18th.
Oh, that'll be nice.
all right.
I really want to go, but we have a wedding in Massachusetts the weekend before. So it would be super busy, but it's technically doable. So we'll see.
Yeah. Friday, November 23rd to Saturday, November 17th
No,
to
17th and 18th.
18th. But the problem is that Ted still hasn't put a picture of me up yet.
Oh
Yeah.
dear.
So that's kind of sad. But there will be paintball warrior poets. So yeah, if you're but gosh, where are we gonna be? We're gonna be like in the middle of stinking nowhere, Arkansas.
Yeah.
So anyway, if you
Yeah.
like hearing me ramble, you'll love this because I'll actually be somewhat prepared.
Also, assuming this is just a fun thing I hope to do, but if the like submit poetry thing is still open, I'd like to submit a translation I'm working on. We'll see.
I had no idea there was a submit poetry thing.
Yeah, it's in the events thing for that.
Okay.
Like, since
Well,
this is all about poetry, we'd love to hear like either one of your favorite poems or like a poem you've worked on.
so what
stuff
poem
like
are you
that.
translating?
It's a Latin poem, I think, about winter. Yeah, I did the one about winter.
By
Horace.
Horace. All right. Well, better than Lucretius.
Yes, Lucretius is not exact. No, Horace does sweet little nature poems. And I like them a lot, and he's underrated. So
Nice. Well, translation news from my quarters is that this person from 1835 had pretty nice handwriting, so it's
nice.
humming along nicely.
It's nice when people from long ago have good handwriting, because that is
Oh,
not
yeah.
always true.
That is true.
Our chancellor's been making fun of my my signature pretty hard.
For being too neat and tidy, or for being too messy?
It looks like a second grader wrote that. Second grader who's learning cursive.
Hmm.
It's okay.
You
My
know-
husband never learned cursive, so for the longest time he would just make random squiggles and call that a signature. He just heard me talking about him and gave a thumbs up to confirm.
Well, some of the people who signed these 19th century documents also did that but it was usually because they couldn't read it all. And then they'd just make some squiggles. And the registrar would say they made their customary sign.
Uh-huh. I think
Just gotta make the same squiggles each time.
it's funny. Sometimes people are like, "Oh, kids these days don't know how to read script. It's unbelievable. They don't teach it in school." And then, like, I read their handwriting in script. I'm like, "Yeah, I can't read this either."
Yeah.
Well, I
I
use
mean,
my cursive when I'm taking notes because I'm the only one who has to read it.
Hmm.
uh, well, it's like I think cursive's pretty easy to read if it's good handwriting, like anything.
Yeah, not mine. My
Well, I mean,
notes are for me.
also, I think if it's your own handwriting, somehow you're able to read it better than everybody else.
This is these are my notes about tonight's show here.
I can read that.
I can read that just fine.
Oh, wait.
Confession.
I need to get my screen where I can see you.
Oh, you're talking about Brunelleschi, I see.
Event.
Boomer liturgies.
Arkansas event.
Boomer
Arkansas
liturgies.
Not
Do
sure
you-
what that
do you
has
take
to
these
do with.
notes so you can come up with a title?
Yeah. No, it's 100% what I do. So this doesn't just like that's what Jacob's channel looks like. Just chatting, just chatting, just chatting,
that's
just
true.
chatting, just chatting. It's like let's
Yeah.
put a little pizzazz on this for future
Uh-huh.
audiences.
Well, we
Just
didn't actually
chatting.
talk about boomer liturgies all that much. But it is worth making the point that for some people, they're really meaningful. And especially if you are a boomer and you lived through the changes in the liturgy, for a lot of people, that was like so exciting and so refreshing and like really, really meaningful. So I try to bear that in mind.
Versus Father Flanagan blasting through a low mass in 23 minutes.
Right.
Yeah. Yep, I can see that.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Anyways, anyone want to talk about Vitruvius?
Whoa.
Vitruvius, you're gonna have to do all the talking, I think.
He's an
I can help.
architecture guru, right?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah,
Learning
Roman
about this
architecture.
guy. His name's Vitruvius. He wrote some books on architecture.
He wrote like a whole manual on Roman architecture and how it's supposed to be done.
Yeah.
I actually just read a thing that quoted him because it was talking about like Roman houses.
Oh,
Yeah,
check this
yeah,
guy
exactly.
out. Holy mackerel.
Oh,
What
yeah,
an
he's.
absolute Chad.
I didn't know there was a picture of him.
I guarantee this is like an 18th century woodcut here.
I should get that.
Artist rendition of what this guy might have looked like.
He's pointing at it. He's like, this is how you do it, boys.
This is how you build the house.
It's a Roman
Yeah.
architect and engineer during the first century, known for his multi-volume work titled De Architectura. He originated the idea that all buildings should have three attributes: firmitas, utilitas, and venustas.
Yeah.
These principles were later
Venustas.
lightly adopted in Roman architecture. His discussion of perfect proportion and architecture in the human body led to the famous Renaissance drawing of Vitruvian Man by Leonardo da Vinci. Well, how about that?
Yeah, that's right. That's where Vitruvian Man comes from.
Well, I'm glad that you're studying this guy and not some postmodern hoser.
It's funny because I hear a lot about people like, oh, they don't teach architects all the stuff that they're supposed to know about ancient history and stuff, and like we have 3 classes that's dedicated to all of history, and 2 of them are all about ancient history, and then there's another one dedicated completely to the Renaissance. So I was going into college wondering like, oh, I wonder if we're going to talk about any of that, or if it's just going to be like you know, Frank Gehry and Zaha Hadid and all that, and it wasn't. They're like, all right, time to talk about Vitruvius. It's like, oh, okay.
Do you think that's like all architecture schools, or did you think you found a good one?
Um, that's a good question. I mean, I know I found a good one because it's like the best in the region,
Mm-hmm.
and I mean, the professors are fantastic. They're not like they don't have their own agenda.
That's
Uh,
nice.
they're all about like, you know, let's discover what you want to make and make it happen. And I'm like, oh, gee, yeah, let me discover that myself.
And then you
Is
came
this
on my live
undergrad or
stream on Sunday
graduate
nights,
degree?
and I told you you were going to build churches for me.
Oh, yeah, yeah, that's right.
So
Uh,
I discovered it for you.
oh,
Hmm.
okay. All right, now I know.
Yeah.
Father Eric gets the credit here.
I could just, you know, I've got lots of great ideas, right?
And then someday when Father Eric becomes Pope,
Oh yeah, oh yeah. He's gonna redo the Paul VI Audience Hall.
Mm,
Take that horrid bronze sculpture out and put something
yeah,
decent and fitting in there.
that's right.
I don't think
Instead,
we're going to do
we'll,
anything about the ceiling, though. We're just going to have to deal with the soft
I
fluorescent
think
glow
you're
of the
probably
future.
stuck with that one.
Yeah.
On the
we'll
plus
have
side, it's not used anymore.
The Paul VI Audience Hall?
No, the Sistine Chapel.
Oh, that.
I
Yeah.
thought you were switching to that.
you want to paint over the god images?
No, I just want to relegate it to being a museum forever.
Oh, okay.
Just formally deconsecrate it.
Where are we gonna have? Where are we gonna make our popes?
Oh, they could still do that there.
Oh, okay.
You think electing a pope's holy?
Mm.
That's making sausage right there, kids.
Oh man. But yeah. Anyways, we're getting started on all that Renaissance stuff. It's interesting to think about whether
Yeah.
their claims on proportions of the human body mean something or not. You've heard of
Well,
that?
there's an ideal out there, an ideal, face, because otherwise marketing wouldn't work. Now, whether or not that can be described with arithmetic, I think, is a different question. But yeah,
Yeah, well, it's interesting because it's the manner in which they proportion things to one another doesn't seem to align with the way the human body looks. So, in some ways, it makes sense, but in other ways, it kind of seems arbitrary. It's like I'm pretty sure the way they do columns is like the base and the shaft and the I forget what the top is called. They like
Capital?
yeah, the capital. They're all sectioned off based on I believe how a human being could be sectioned off from like their feet to their head or something like that. And then it's like
capital comes from caput, which means head. So
yeah, but then like you know, what about the rest of the body? What about the arms and the other stuff? And maybe you could make all sorts of ornamentations that pertain to those sections, but then it wouldn't really look like a human. So, does it actually have an effect, or is it just a proportioning system? And is it just the proportions that create the effects?
So, I mean, obviously, you don't want to apply that principle in a overly like simplistic one-to-one mapping. Like, I don't think that's gonna work because otherwise, the best architecture would just be sculptures of humans holding things up.
Oh, we've done that.
But if you look at, let's say, the pattern of humanity, insofar as you're considering them bottom to top, then that kind of proportion of the capital, the feet, and the whole trunk, I think that actually ends up standing up. But it's not a real tight relationship. It's just kind of just got to hold it loose, I think.
Hmm.
Without getting caught up in the details of fingernails and
Yeah.
calf muscles and those sorts of things.
I think that's
Yeah,
how a lot of ideals
well-
work.
I don't know. Maybe.
You don't want to.
Yeah,
I don't think-
it's a loose, intuitive kind of mapping. I think not a real type one.
After all, the ancients didn't care about facts.
Yeah, ancient people just wanted to hear a good story.
Is that Bart Ehrman?
I don't know who that is. That's
okay.
That's any biblical scholar who's sitting there writing, being like, well, Matthew would have just made this up because it would have been convenient for that to have been true. And I just want to reach through the book and pull the guy's
Punch him in the face.
nose off, because just complete nonsense.
Yeah.
Like, of course, ancient people would have cared if this actually happened or not, or if it was literally just a story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People would care if Harry Potter was real or not.
Yeah, right? Where's my Hogwarts letter?
Yeah.
Source, dude, just trust me. I mean, that's basically it, right? No, man, there was totally like this document that like all of the gospel writers were drawing off of. And no, we don't have a copy of it. Yeah, just trust me, all right? There was totally a document. It's called Q, Now you guys are getting me all wound up.
Source. It happened once in a dream. Or this came to me in a dream.
I think we'll close things off with an old favorite that's made its way through BOM again. Where are you? Where are you?
Sorry, Laura, if
I have no memory of this place.
No. I'm gonna get there. I'm gonna get there. Here we go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100.
Uh-huh.
100%.
Absolutely.
I'm just sorry that I had to show it on Reddit, but that was the only place I could find it. So anyway,
I love it.
with that, I will leave you good people to your devices. Happy Sunday, and God bless you all.
Happy Sunday.
You too.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.